Hey Supernatural family, this is Emily from Supernatural on the Rocks. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Number one, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor is everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Don't you cry no more. Hello, welcome to Supernatural on the Rocks. I'm Emily.
And I'm Mandy.
And this is the Winchesters Weekly, and this is episode 4. Masters of War. Another song title, Bob Dylan, 1963.
So that's definitely their trend.
It's definitely a theme. I love it.
Yeah.
Good for them. The rundown here of this episode is after the details of a veteran's death don't add up, Carlos brings everyone in to investigate, and he shares a detail about his past that makes John see him in a new light. Mary finds an unexpected ally who has been hot on the trail of this monster, and Latika tries to help Mary heal and find closure with someone she lost. Meanwhile, John's habit of running headfirst into danger leaves Millie worried for her son. So we have a PTSD episode.
Yeah. A very war-centric episode.
Yes. War and PTSD is the name of this game. We did get our wishes answered with some Carlos backstory, though.
Yes, and I appreciated that.
I did too. It didn't take long.
I also read something interesting about Carlos, which is that because the actor is non-binary, and apparently they have confirmed the character is also non-binary. There just isn't the language for that in that era. Yeah.
Fascinating. All right, great. I'm sure that went over well in the Navy. In the 70s, in the 60s, 70s, yeah.
Just, like, it made me very curious to know if they're gonna somehow work that into like a backstory somewhere. I don't know, or like not a backstory, but like a story.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's not done in a way, it's like, oh, the writers don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I would say rely heavily on
the actor.
Yeah.
Just let him do the writing here.
Yeah. But in this one, we learn he was a drifter and went to war because he was arrested and didn't want to go to jail.
Which I think is probably a lot of people's stories.
Yeah. Like, I get it. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I appreciated getting backstory from Carlos. They heard the fandom's wishes, and I think they also assumed that everyone was going to want to know more about these characters.
Yeah.
So they needed to get that in there. And they probably also wanted the actor in a Navy uniform.
Probably so, because they definitely worked that in.
They did.
Full uniform.
They gave us a great entrance.
Yeah.
Of Carlos walking in his Navy uniform.
Yep.
Both John and his mother seem to enjoy the walk-in.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is gonna lead to the Winchesters also not realizing when their characters are bisexual.
I mean, that would kind of be amazing.
But there's a long lingering look. Yeah. We can't really deny that.
Yeah.
Could be an actor choice. Who knows? But yeah, so Carlos was a Navy medic living off the grid and got arrested. And he told this story during the A plot when he and John are fake enrolled in a therapy group for veterans.
Which is essentially them going undercover, but like telling their own stories.
Undercover, but not really, because they are veterans.
Yeah.
Both could probably use more therapy than they got.
Let's just have a few more therapy-centric episodes to let them work these issues out.
Carlos really seemed to enjoy his therapy session.
Yeah.
Maybe a little not too much, but at the very end of the episode, it was like his 2 minutes of talk therapy. We're like, and this is the best I've ever felt. Like, hold on, that's not how this works. You don't tell one story and suddenly everything about you is fixed. You're going to need to go back to that group or see a one-on-one therapist, maybe a few more sessions. John Winchester, on the other hand, did not have the same experience of openness and sensitivity because he is a repressed white man, and that's how therapy goes for the Winchesters.
Yeah.
Um,
We also see flashbacks, like full like PTSD breakdown.
mhm. Yeah, fully
Where
into it.
it feels very like, I mean, I was gonna say it feels very Sam and Dean, but it feels very repressed white guy. So they're doing a nice little nod to Sam and Dean that way too. But it's also, like you said, any repressed white guy.
Yes.
But yeah, their whole issues with dealing with their like grief and anger and trauma by just like cracking open a beer and
Mhm.
pretending it didn't happen.
Yes, and they, I mean, obviously, well, I mean, we have time. Well, maybe we don't. Who knows how long the CW is going to be alive? But
Yeah, yeah,
at some point, John Winchester has to become the person who doesn't know how to raise two sons
yeah,
and turns them into monster hunters. So he's not going to be an open,
yeah.
um, heartfelt, soul on the table kind of person.
It is strange to consider this character. He's pretty damn wholesome right now.
He is.
Loves his mom, likes the pretty girl,
Mhm.
and he has the war trauma, but that's not specific to him.
No. At some point, he gets
Yeah.
destroyed.
Like there's not a happy ending for these characters, but this show feels very bright right now.
Yes, it does. And I don't know when that's gonna
Yeah.
shift. So there was like a little hint when he um with the A plot, he has to, I mean, obviously there is a monster of the week here,
Hmm.
and that is a creature killing veterans inside this VA hospital.
Yeah,
Um and there's
a
a
war god because they like to really hammer it home.
hammers with gods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Carlos brings news of a World War II vet, Patches, who died in a locked room in a psych ward. Um, and the costumes were a little cheap here, I gotta
Yeah.
say. Not great.
You can tell their budget's not like the best right now.
Budget's not the best. But yeah, so, you know, at the end, after everything goes down, which we can talk about, but John really kind of breaks down about what he does.
Hmm.
Um, so he's not fully invested in the murder lifestyle yet. Eventually, he will have to get there
Yeah,
because that's who he becomes.
he'll uh he'll really get the hang of it at some point.
And obviously, the upcoming death of his wife by demon
Yeah.
will probably do that to a man. So it will be, if they are given the time to explore that, I think that'll be interesting to
Mhm.
see how this this cute little kid right now becomes the John Winchester that I don't think we can say that we know and love. I don't know that anyone knows.
No.
We all know and love Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yes.
I
He
think
can,
everyone
yeah.
everyone hates John Winchester.
He's horrible.
Yeah.
And I did this episode more than any previous one. I just like stared at him thinking this becomes John Winchester.
Yeah. Hmm.
Just like the disconnect in my head. They're gonna have like, maybe it's gonna be on the actor, maybe like partially on the writers, but they're gonna have to keep him from being too vulnerable. Like
Yes.
maybe he can be vulnerable a little bit with Mary, but
Hmm.
I don't know that, or we're just gonna see all of the hope and life beat out of him over the next few seasons.
I mean, that could be fun too.
That could be fun. I wouldn't hate that.
No,
It's
fandom
gonna
does
have
not
to,
hate the destruction of a character.
yeah, it's gonna have to darken up a little, but like
Hmm.
Supernatural did, so
Yes. Yeah, it did.
I'm here for it. I just, like you said, we don't know how long CW is actually gonna exist, so
It could disappear tomorrow.
yeah,
So there's 13 episodes, and they found out, or we found out, whoever, that they didn't get a back end order.
mm,
So season one is only 13 episodes, and then I guess they'll find out if they get a second
yeah.
season. That's not a lot of time
I
to
mean, I'm
develop a story.
I'm okay with it if they have concise storytelling, but
Yes.
I also, as someone who likes the Monster of the Week episodes,
Hmm.
like I hope they continue to do those with the season arc in the background.
Of the Akrita.
Yeah.
Because this had character building on top of the
Yeah.
monster of the week, which was nice. We got backstory,
Mhm.
we got John's PTSD, a little bit of flirting with Mary, because eventually they are going to have to get
Of
married.
course. Yeah.
So they will have to develop a relationship.
We have the nice line from Carlos about their hetero mating rituals, which
Yes, loved it.
I I actually, because we've talked about the language before, I looked up when the word hetero started really being used. And it was used a little, like it started spiking in like the late 70s.
Okay.
And then like didn't like fully spike until like the 2000s and,
Okay.
and more recent. So I'm going to say Carlos, like he's going to get by on this one because he's a trendsetter.
Okay, great.
But it was not a super common word.
We'll let him have it simply because he's
Yeah.
Carlos.
Yeah.
Got it. Great.
Anyone else wouldn't have gotten away with that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that one. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little iffy on that one. Yeah. So if we want to, talk plot a little bit, we have this World War II vet who is murdered by a mysterious being, which does give Mary, John, and Lotta the ability to dress up in hospital garb to break into the VA, because Carlos does seem to just have a van full of disguises, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Which makes sense to me. I don't see why he wouldn't. Carlos, however, has to hide in the body bag, which is a bit disappointing and a bit gross. And I hope he doesn't have any claustrophobia. But they find out that Patches was part of this inpatient therapy group, got into a fight with another patient. So they start putting the pieces together of how this could have happened. A bit early, maybe in the season, to be fighting a god.
Yeah. They
Potentially.
kind of kept that card in the deck for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sort of like the way the Akrita is like trying to destroy all life on Earth. Like you could have started smaller.
Right.
Like
yeah. The season 1, vampires and werewolves were like just killing local townsfolk to get by.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that demigods were trying to take over.
They're speed running the stakes game here.
Yeah. Yep. They really kind of jumped into death and destruction for the entire world. So, obviously one of the other patients has to be the demigod that they fight, because who else would it be? Who else in this universe could this be? And it's someone named Nato, I forget. But Mary and Lotta discover this by finally opening up Maggie's room, which who is Mary's dead cousin, right?
Who is not in a coma.
Who is no longer in a coma.
Yeah.
And I guess has never been.
I was to say they're making it quite clear. It's been a year since she died.
Yes. Did we know that they lived together, or is that also new information?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I didn't remember it, so
I didn't either, but it turns out Maggie was living with Mary, and Mary has kept that room shut thematically, just like people with PTSD keep parts of their psyche closed off to other things. Do you see what they did there with the A and B plots?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Some parallel type situations happening.
Parallel storytelling. Lotta convinces Maggie that it is time to open up this room, conveniently because there is a book inside that describes their monster. So it's really not just for the emotional impact, but to solve the plot. This god or deity has the ability to alter the realities of his enemies, which is why the people in the VA have been seeing weird shit around. Like they feel like they're in the jungle.
Which it's gotta be fucking up some people with PTSD already.
Yeah, I don't think they've been enjoying this at all.
Yeah, not a fun time.
And I mean, considering what this Mars deity says to John at the end, you have to wonder like why he picked the people that he picked. Like why Patches? Because so obviously he goes after John, and John and Carlos get trapped in like a fake Vietnam jungle, and Carlos steps on a landmine, which is the way that John's buddy died in front of him. And then this is how John meets this Mars person. And Mars tells him that he's trying to sharpen John into a weapon powerful enough to defeat the Akrita, which is like a parallel to Dean being the Michael sword
Yeah.
throughout those number of seasons. Like, all right, we get it. The Winchesters are special.
Yeah.
We got this. I don't know if I needed another special Winchester,
Apparently, they're all going to be special.
but I guess all Winchesters are special.
Can't wait for the next spin-off with Sam's kid.
No, thank you. And his Party City wig. I'm good.
Yes. God, that was bad.
He'll have the Impala, though.
Yeah, true.
Because Sam had the Impala at the end, so I'm assuming...
Spin-off that's just the Impala.
It's just called Impala. Yeah. But, yeah, so he's trying to sharpen John into a weapon, but then, like, why was he attacking Patches? Was he trying to turn these other people, or was he just, like, killing people?
Trying to get him there, maybe?
Yeah,
but
trying to draw him.
I mean, you'd think there would be another way. A less murderous way.
A less murder of already traumatized veterans kind of a way? Or is this just a gods don't care about war veterans situation?
Gods don't care in general, unless they have some kind of stake in it.
That seems reasonable. Yeah. But all deities who are created by men, because that's how that works. He has a special vase that ties him to the world, and if they destroy that, then he's rendered mortal. So obviously Mary, Millie, and Lotta find that and destroy it.
I do love Lotta pointing out what a like dumb weakness that is.
Yeah, like wait, it's a vase? Lame. Like agreed.
If you could choose the vessel, why wouldn't you do like a bank vault?
Right?
Or even a hotel room vault, something that can stand a little destruction around it.
Or like a titanium marble. Something you can't just like drop off a ladder and smash.
But it made it easy for them, so.
It did make it easy for them. And he very conveniently hid it in his room because he's just been staying at the Veterans Hospital. I don't know. It's stupid. So, he and John have been fighting because gods like to fight mortal people, even though they can't lose. These kind of stories always have that like suspension of disbelief. You're like, just let them fight. It's fine. But John obviously kills him by shoving a spear right into his gut. And this is Mars tells him like, oh, he's ready for the war against the Akrita because he killed him, because murder makes men sharp and ready for war.
Yeah.
As if he wasn't already a warrior. Like he was already in combat.
Literally been to war.
Like a literal war veteran. So I feel like maybe Mars was not paying attention to John's history.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he needed to do this. He was already troubled and traumatized. The therapist could have told him that. But he had this whole thing of, like, he needs to let loose his rage. Like, oh, this is just Dean all over again. Or maybe pre-Dean, since Dean comes later. Anyway, it's a generational trauma. Which is, I guess, it's like the Winchesters, generational trauma.
I mean, that really could be the subtitle to the entire universe.
Supernatural, generational trauma. Yeah. And their buddy who just wants to hang out. But yeah, so they, defeat the Mars and get to live another day, sort of. I did appreciate that the therapist in all this was not in on it.
Yeah, that dude was just genuinely giving them some therapy.
Yeah, because there was kind of a hint that maybe the therapist was like not a genuine dude, but he was. Yeah. He was really just trying to help the veterans with what limited resources he had. So I did appreciate that. And then I appreciated Mary inviting Carlos to stay in the house.
Yes.
Especially since I guess Carlos has also just been living in his van still.
Yeah, I mean, he's described as what, like a drifter. I feel like
Yeah.
it was sort of implied that that's still the case.
Yeah. And Mary's just had this spare room
Yeah.
and a drifter friend and not been like, hey, buddy.
Took her a little while to catch on, but at least she did.
Yeah. Like maybe you want this house?
I could get into a Carlos and Mary friendship.
Yeah. I mean, they're
I think that would
definitely
be
going to
fun.
butt heads, but
Yeah.
there could be some fun. Yeah.
And Lana
Roommate.
and Mary too, obviously, but like we got some of that in this episode and it was nice.
Yes. And I appreciate Lotta calling out kind of the inequity of the research that's been done by the men of letters.
Yeah.
When she was talking about how like there's just no non-Christian books anywhere.
Yep. That's a
And,
really
like,
good.
like they have just no other lore, nothing. Like no, you're right. And they do tend to fight things that aren't just Christian lore.
Yeah.
Like way to not stock the library, friends. So I do appreciate, these other perspectives that I think the show is working hard so far to keep in the mix.
I did miss Ada.
Yeah, where was she? I mean,
She was not in this episode.
she's probably tending to her demon tree.
Yeah, really. Just giving it a few more snips.
Yeah, just giving a little poke.
Like slugs on it or something.
It's amazing. I love that demon tree. I hope that comes back.
Yeah. And then we also didn't get to learn anything else about Rockin' Roxy.
Right.
So that's a little thread still left hanging that we don't know when they're going to get back to.
Right. Well, I'm assuming soon.
I guess it has to be soon.
Got 13 episodes to get to. Chop chop. The thing that we haven't talked about yet is the reporter who asked Mary out at the movies.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Did happen to be important-ish. So the guy that Mary ran into at the movie theater has a name now, Kyle.
Yep.
And
he's a reporter.
He's a reporter and was also investigating the death of Patches at the VA.
Yeah.
Are we concerned about him or do we think he's legit?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of hoping he's not because that would be more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not particularly interested in, it's not even like a mid-game really yet. It's an early series game.
Right.
But yeah, I either actually evil or just morally gray would be more interesting to me.
Yes, agreed.
Especially if Mary is genuinely into him.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
And he's like polar opposite of, choir boy John.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like maybe we're not supposed to see John as like that much of a choir boy, but I can't help. There's just something so all-American about that actor's looks.
He does have the Clark Kent look to him, the 6 foot whatever, just a little too pretty kind of a look.
He's also a little bit like Jared Padalecki, but not in Supernatural, in like Gilmore Girls.
Ah, yes, correct.
Just like exactly what you were describing.
Yes, you are correct. Yeah, I do wonder what the casting call was like for this role of, hey, we need someone who's a mix between Sam and Dean. Like,
yeah.
Well, yes, but not a mix between Jared and Jensen. These are different. We need Sam and Dean, not Jared and Jensen.
Also, I don't think he looks much like Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
No, he's very...
Yeah.
I mean...
He did the whole, like, shirtless scene, and I was thinking, is he supposed to be, like, 20s?
I know.
Because that is a very tanned, hairless man.
Mm-hmm.
Does he shave his... I haven't seen Jeffrey Dean Morgan without a shirt on, but I'm guessing.
Well, remember, though, isn't he, like, 18?
Is he? See, I thought maybe they're supposed to be a little bit older.
I have no idea anymore.
I can't figure it out. I was guessing, like, maybe, like, 21, 22.
Okay. I have no idea.
I don't know. If he's 18, that makes a lot more sense. That would be very...
I don't know how long he was in Vietnam.
Yeah, I don't think we've had any way to judge that.
Someone should tweet Jensen and ask, how
Yeah.
old is John Winchester in the first season of the Winchesters?
Do we have his birthday? Let's see. John Winchester birthday. I'm going to do some live Googling. Um, December 1946. And what year is this set? It is actually, it's set in 1972. So
That sounds like math.
he's 26.
What?
I mean, they could very easily,
Okay.
boss this.
I've been thinking he was supposed to be much younger.
A different website. Okay, so the December 1946 comes from his email address, which is jwinchester1246.
Okay, but what if that's like his locker combination?
Yeah. So the Supernatural Wiki has him born in 1954.
Okay, that's very different.
That's very different. 1972, 1954. That would make him 18.
Okay, kids, these are very different ages.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a problem for me now because I'm either picturing an 18-year-old or a 26-year-old, and they're very different people. One of them has a fully formed frontal lobe.
Yes. I mean, I'm going to hope it's 18 because that really does make more sense in terms of his physical appearance and also his attitude of some slight hope in the world.
Yeah, his like duh.
Yeah.
Not even duh, but like, you know what I mean.
Yeah. So it also lists Mary as having December 5th, 1954. So that would make Mary the same age.
Both 18.
But again, it doesn't list a source. Like, it doesn't say, because the other one had an episode. I mean, it was his email address that was showed an episode.
When would John Winchester have a fucking email address?
I don't know.
And why isn't it in an AOL address?
Asylum? Yeah, in the 9th episode, we discovered that Papa Winchester's email address is jwinchester1246 and Dean's cell phone number. Okay, this is not related to this at all, but so they listed Dean's cell phone number on the show, and if you called it, you got a message that said, "Dad, we really need to hear from you. Leave a message. Text me. Check your jwinchester1246 Gmail. Anything. We have new info."
Okay.
And then if you emailed the address, you got an email back from him that had like coordinates. So like they were doing a whole like marketing thing around that.
Okay.
So I don't know if we would consider that. I mean, it was still in the show, but I don't know how canon that's considered since it was kind of a marketing thing.
Yeah. Interesting. And then it says a draft script of the pilot places John's age at 30 when Mary dies.
Huh.
Which is not helpful.
That is not helpful.
Okay. John could not possibly have been born any later than 1957 to be 18 and in the Marines in 1975.
But he went to the Marines
early.
I mean, how early could he have gone?
All right. In an alternate reality experienced by Dean, John's gravestone indicates he was born in 1954.
Okay.
But that was an alternate reality. But I'll take it.
Yeah. That makes, I mean, it just makes so much more sense. I kind of don't want him to be 26 because then like really that's miscasting.
Do we need to tweet? Do we need to be like at?
Yeah. Let's tweet. Let's ask.
It was a very simple episode, honestly.
It was like it was heavy on the character development kind of, but also just like information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is good. Like I'm not complaining about it, but yeah, the premise of the episode and the resolution were very simple.
Yes. I mean, I think other than Carlos, I mean, I hope they don't just leave Carlos's therapy at, I had 2 minutes of therapy. I'm good. Like, son, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Baby child, no. I hope they return to these themes of veterans needing more care than they are given. Obviously, we know that this doesn't happen for World War II and Vietnam veterans. We know that we don't treat them well. Spoiler alert for the history, but maybe in the show, John can get some more help. We know he doesn't. He becomes a terrible father.
Yeah.
Shit. That's such an interesting aspect of this show, honestly, is that you know the ending.
Yeah.
So this is a tangent, but it's somewhat related, and it's, I think, one of the more interesting aspects of Stephen King's writing is that very often in the beginning of the book, he tells you what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still read a horror story and you're like, shit, these people are making so many mistakes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's still scary, even though he told you in the beginning what is going to happen. And you're just reading going, fuck, 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 fuck.
And I feel like this show could absolutely be the same way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, they have a lot of just like baked in tension.
Yes.
From the fact that
Mm-hmm.
Mary doesn't live
No.
past 30 or whatever.
Right. 30 something.
Which is either in 12 years or 6.
It's either tomorrow or it already happened. And you know that John does not handle it well. And so Mary dies when Sam is an infant and Dean is 4. So, I mean, I don't think I need children in this show, but you know, depending on how they do this, you could see. I still think if it's gonna end, it needs to end with like Mary dying, because then you know how Supernatural begins. Yeah, so I think there's room in this show for it to become darker.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be exactly Supernatural,
No.
but
Yeah.
we know
It probably shouldn't.
no, but there is such, as you said, built-in tension with Mary dying and John becoming such a tragic asshole.
Like, even if this show ends on like them getting married or like her being pregnant with Dean, even, presuming this show is not going to go all the way to like butt right up against Supernatural,
Mhm.
like it's going to be bittersweet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it has to. So I think that's, I don't know, I think that's kind of cool. I think that
It makes it more
presents,
interesting to watch.
it does. I think it does. And maybe it doesn't for people who are just watching it for the first time.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, what a fun show. Like,
Or anyone that hasn't.
Right.
I still can't imagine someone that hasn't seen Supernatural.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
yeah.
Good luck. I mean, I can't believe there are still people on Earth who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years. Just join.
That's how long it's going to take me to finish season 6.
You better
The
get
month
in
of
there.
October is over. I was doing one horror movie a day in October. It was hard to watch other stuff, but
Get in there. We got people waiting.
Yes. But we're giving them this podcast to make it feel better while they wait. But yes.
This one's more fun and uplifting than how we're going to have to talk about Castiel. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a ton on this episode other than it, for how heavy the themes were, it was a bit light.
Yeah.
You'll have, people listening will have to let us know how they
please do.
How they felt about it.
Let us know opinions.
Yeah, I'm super curious just what other people are enjoying, invested, or not. Like, are people not enjoying this?
I've definitely seen some reviews that are just referring to it as, mediocre.
Mm-hmm. It does feel like a show that you have to want to like.
Yeah, so far at least.
Mm-hmm. But that's how.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of other similar types of shows. Like, if you hadn't watched Buffy, what would you have thought of the first episodes of Angel?
Yeah.
Although Angel turned out to be a really great show, so.
Yeah. It takes them a little while to find their footings, especially spinoffs.
Yes. And sometimes they just don't work.
Yep. But I hope this one does.
Yeah, I do too. Someone's got to pay Jensen.
Exactly. we got to keep it going long enough for Misha to get a cameo.
I know. Men's got to work.
The Winchesters in the 80s.
Oh my god. Oh boy. Just for the costumes.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, all right. So I think we actually have a bit of a 2-week break before the next episode.
Okay.
Week after next.
Okay.
So we got a bit of a gap. Okay. But then we'll be back with the next episode if I'm not mistaken on how the schedule looks for the Winchesters. So thank you for listening, and if you want to check us out, you can find us on the internet on at SPN on the Rocks. If you are at all interested in Glee, we also have a Glee podcast because we're those people.
We are.
And that's Glee on the Rocks. And if you want to support either of those podcasts, you can do that at Patreon at patreon.com/Glee on the Rocks. Or you can just listen to this and then go back to listening to Taylor Swift, because that's what we'll be doing.
Yes.
Or that's what I'll be doing.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
I have Karma on like repeat.
I'm a Midnight Rain girl.
No. I'm Karma, vigilante shit, and anti-hero.
I'm Midnight Rain and Maroon.
Okay.
And woulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Yeah, that's what I'm.
We currently have different vibes, but I feel like I'm going to cycle through all of them. They'll all get their moment.
Yeah. That's how I'm feeling right now. Those are my vibes at the moment. So on Taylor Swift on the Rocks, we will talk to you about our weekly listening ratios for Midnights.
We'll compare Spotify
playlists. Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. So thanks for listening, and then we will catch you next time on Supernatural on the Rocks.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to Supernatural on the Rocks, a podcast by OTR Productions. A huge thank you to our sound editor, Adriana, and our podcasts, who secretly run the show. For more episodes, download us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and more at SPN on the Rocks. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can subscribe to our Patreon account at patreon.com/Glee on the Rocks. Subscribers get ad-free episodes, exclusive mini-episodes deep diving into the fandom, salty opinions, and more. So until next time, this has been The Road That Was.